Historically, the market has only gone up by 5.7% per year. I bet you thought it was more. But when calculated a different way, the historically based number could be more than twice as much, at 12.1%. And believe it or not, both figures, the 5.7% and the 12.1%, are entirely accurate. And I've seen them both used to mislead you, depending on what the speaker or author is trying to get you to do. I'll walk you through the math so that you're as prepared as possible the next time someone's trying to convince you one way or the other. Coming up. It's so good to be back, guys. I've got so much to tell you, but this isn't the time or place for us to catch up. So I look forward to seeing you in our new community at community.spicercapital.com. Now, if this is your first time here, my name is Steven Spicer, and it's my goal to help you invest smarter. And don't forget to hit subscribe and click that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the unique value and insights that I have queued up for you. So on the matter at hand, if you're working through your financial plan, you've been told some story about what the market has done in the past. If someone is trying to convince you that you should have a greater sum in the market, you've probably heard that it has historically averaged 10% or maybe even 12% per year. On the other hand, if someone is trying to convince you that you should put your money elsewhere, you've probably heard a figure much lower, like 6%. Well, which is it? Where are these numbers coming from, and which should we use for our planning considerations? First off, we should probably define the market, as there are, in fact, many markets in the world of investments. We'll explore the most relevant to you over time on this channel. In most cases, in most finance-themed conversations where the market is mentioned, however, people are referring specifically to the stock market. Now, I'm assuming at this point that you have a basic understanding of what a stock is. If not, that's okay. You can check out this old video. Now, in an attempt to track the performance of the stock market as a whole over time, a few indices are relied upon. An index tracks a group of investments as opposed to just one individual stock. There are three major indices: the NASDAQ 100, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the S&P 500. Now, if you follow stocks anywhere, you'll see these three more than anything else front and center. The NASDAQ, or National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations System, is generally thought of as representing the technology sector. In fact, however, it's made up of the 100 largest non-financial, not just tech, companies. It can provide a fascinating insight into the rapid growth of many of the most innovative companies in the world, but it's not a great representation of the entire stock market. The Dow is made up of companies from all different sectors, but only 30 of them. No matter how large each is, that's hardly a large enough subset to give us a glimpse, to give us the best glimpse into the performance and health of the stock market as a whole. In fact, it's just kind of used as a token measure at this point. The S&P 500, on the other hand, is made up of the 500 largest U.S. companies, which represents roughly 80% of the total U.S. stock market. So, quiz time. Which of the three most common indices do you think would provide the best insights into the performance of the market as a whole? Let me know in the comments. And if you don't put the S&P 500, I'd love to know why. Anyway, I have on occasion, and if you've read or watched enough financial content, you probably have as well, seen experts use the Dow Jones Industrial Average as their measure for stock market returns. That 30 company index is obviously not as good a measure, not as comprehensive a representation of large US companies. Why then would anyone use it to demonstrate the stock market's historical return? Either he just wasn't thinking, didn't know any better, and happened to have his Dow 30 historical data more easily accessible than the S&P 500, or he has an agenda. Now, it's not severe, but every percentage point makes a rather significant difference here, as we'll explore in detail in upcoming videos. Averaging the returns of the Dow Jones Industrial Average from 1926 through the end of 2019 produces an average annual return of more than 2% lower than the S&P 500's. We could even just keep adjusting that starting date. It debuted in the late 1890s until we found an average return that was even lower. You see how easy this business of data manipulation is? Instead, however, I chose 1926 so that it would coincide with the start date of its S&P counterpart. Now, if someone wanted to be really tricky, and I've seen this, so be careful, they'd produce for you this same figure without factoring for reinvested dividends. A dividend is a sum of money paid regularly, typically quarterly, by a company to its shareholders out of its profits or reserves. Many of these larger companies in the Dow 30 and the S&P 500 have a long track record of paying dividends. Aside from the stock's value going up over time, this is the other primary way shareholders stand to profit from their investment. Obviously, any dividends that have been paid out should be considered in these calculations of your average annual return. They do benefit you along the way. The easiest way is to just assume they're reinvested. Most calculators will do that for you. With clever wording, however, I've seen some finance gurus get away with the omission just to prove their point. Consider this. Historically speaking, the share price of the collective companies within the Dow 30, i.e. the price of the index, has averaged less than 6% per year. See what I did there? That was all true, albeit extremely misleading. Leaving this one consideration out of the Dow's historic calculations produces an average annualized return of just 5.7%. Tricky. Just like that, we've already cut some average annual return claims by more than half, all while using very real historical data. It's not hard to imagine someone taking that previous claim and stretching it into something like this. Historically speaking, the market has actually only averaged less than 6%. And feeling okay with the fact that everything they just said was technically true, if not upsettingly misleading. My point with this, my caution to you, is that it's not hard to prove a point one way or the other here. You can't just hear a figure that sounds convincing and take it at face value. Obviously, we don't want to use the Dow Jones Industrial Average on this one. We'll stick with the S&P 500. Originally consisting of 90 of the largest companies in the United States, Standard & Poor's started tracking this index back in 1926. In 1957, it was expanded to the 500 company composite we recognize today. Here's the year-by-year return breakdown. To calculate a simple or arithmetic average, we just need to add all these returns together and then divide by the number of years, 94 in this case. This calculation reveals that from 1926 through the end of 2019, the S&P 500 has averaged a 12.1% annual return. Boom. There you have it. Case closed. 12% per year is what you should expect in the market. It's true that the simple average of the market's annual returns comes out to 12.1%. And although some people...
And the S&P during that time averaged 11.81%, which is real close to 12, stupid people.
Might like you to just stop there. You shouldn't. This is still not even close to the full picture of what you should expect from the market. But at least you know which index to look toward for some real historical insight. And now you know to question anyone that's using Dow statistics. In the next video, we're going to explore what the actual historical return of the market has been, because it's not 12%. Sorry, Dave.
Stupid people.
So don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. And if you're sincerely interested in understanding some of the problems I've discovered with the financial industry, you should check out our new community. I'm planning to release some rough draft chapters of my book here pretty soon, and that'll be the place that I do it. So I hope to see you in there. Regardless, wish you all the best.